Why can't I hear anybody?
Do you hear me?
I do.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good to see you.
Julie said she didn't have the link, but I just sent it to her, so she should be logging on.
Julie's listed as an attendee right now.
Why is that?
Did you send her the panelist link or the attendee link? Is it possible you sent her the
Sent her the
attendee?
link that I just clicked onto and came on. I sent her the same link that I have.
Yeah, she's showing as attendee with her hand raised.
Okay.
You should be able to switch her over, I think.
Well, let me see if I can find her. She doesn't show up for me. Oh, attendees, yeah.
Are you able to
let's look.
switch her over?
Yeah.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi, Julie.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Cool. So Maureen, normally we have everybody on one screen. I'm only seeing one person at a time.
I just sent you the link. Did you get it?
I did.
And you clicked it?
I did.
I don't
Try
know
that.
why it's doing that.
Julie, that you can change that with speaker view up at the top right.
I have no controls at all. None.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
gonna
that's
send you
because
the
you're an
whole thing
attendee.
again. I don't know why it would do this, but okay, let me send it to you.
Okay. I'm going to exit and come back in.
Okay. Because all of you should have gotten the link.
Yeah, I got it in email.
I didn't get an email, but I came in from the link on the agenda. On the website.
Yeah, I don't know why that would happen. Oh, for the love of God, come on. There. Because when I do the Zoom meeting, I send out everybody, all of you, an invite. And that was probably 2 weeks ago that was sent out to you.
Was there, and I could go back and look, was there?
September 22nd.
Bond?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was September 22nd was the invite.
Okay,
I don't know if that's helpful, but.
it might be. Thank you.
Nope, Julie is still coming in as an attendee. I don't know why.
As
Promote
the host,
channel.
are
There.
you able to switch her?
I did.
Okay. There you go.
Hi, Dave.
Hello. Sorry I'm late. I had a computer problem. I had to restart my computer.
We hadn't started yet.
Perfect.
There we go. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. And see.
Okay. That's what happens when we do things too far in advance, Maureen.
Apparently so.
It looks like we're waiting on 2 people. I'm going to send Monica a note and tell her where to look for the link. Look for link in 9.
I used the link from the email from Maureen on the 22nd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I just sent her.
There comes Monica.
There she is. Okay.
I'm in. Yay. Sorry, I was on another Zoom meeting and I just thought, oh, they'll just click in, and it was buried in my email so deep. So thank you for the date. That helped tremendously.
I had the same
Okay,
issue, if
moving
that
up.
makes you feel better.
Sorry, guys.
You might want to send Kara the same message.
I did. I did.
Okay, good. There she is.
Okay, great. So I'm going to welcome everyone to the call and call this the regular meeting of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting on October 28th, 2020. So let's go ahead and start with a roll call. This is Julie Bowden, Chair of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee.
So Newstrom,
Thank you.
Colleen Dickerson,
Carson Green.
Cara Frangipane.
And then I think Monica is the last one.
Sorry, Monica Johnson. I have a lot of screens up right now. I apologize. I'm trying to do too many things at once.
Okay, just as a reminder before we get started, with the Zoom calls, it's really important that we give everybody a chance to speak. So I'm asking members to mute themselves until called upon to speak, and I appreciate that decorum. So item number 2 on the agenda is consideration of minutes from our prior meeting on September 27, 2020. Would someone please move to approve?
I move to approve.
A second?
I second.
Wonderful. Any corrections or discussions? Sure.
and I think that I'm on the minutes. I couldn't print out again, so I'm trying to read it from another screen. Under subcommittee updates, there's a note that says animals and park rule, new park ranger hired under police department. I want to know what has it been hired? And because I don't remember that being set, that they have been hired. I didn't know what that's going to happen.
I think the minutes, I put that in there because it did happen. And Supervisor Lewis announced that he had been hired and was under the police department.
Okay, but I guess I can wait to ask the questions then under something else.
Can I ask for a clarification for that? I wasn't aware that park ranger had been hired yet because it's in next year's budget. I could be wrong.
Supervisor Lewis?
I think the clarification was that we were going to be hiring. It was part of the
Got it.
budget.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying, for catching that. Okay, we'll correct that. Any other discussions or corrections? All right, so is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended? And a second, please?
We could just a friendly modification to the standing motion. Since I made the motion, I accept the change.
Monica, did you second?
Yes.
You're muted.
Shoot. Monica, you're me.
Thank
There
you.
you
I'm sorry. I've got to clear off all these screens. I keep losing you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I second. Sorry.
All right, so please vote by a show of hands, those who approve the minutes as amended. All right, that looks like all has approved. Thank you so very much. So the minutes as amended are approved. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. Maureen, do we have any visitors? Okay, I think I read your lips that said we do not.
No, we do not.
So we'll go on to the next item on our agenda, which is code enforcement statistics for September.
Hey, everyone. How's it going? It's nice to see all of you guys again. Just going over the statistics, if you've had an opportunity to review them. I do want to let you know that tomorrow is the last day of our seasonal code enforcement officer. He has completed his assigned duties, and that budgetary item has come to an end. But I'm happy to report that that seasonal code enforcement officer has inspected every single exterior from public right-of-way residential property within the city of Inglewood. And any of those violations that were noted, they were issued a formalized warning letter. And again, just to emphasize, this was a very quick inspection with no follow-up, very little documentation. It was really meant to be a formalized educational warning opportunity based off of our statistic of almost 97% compliance. So we're quite proud of this, and I believe the city manager intends on having the seasonal code enforcement officer back again next year. So, and I shouldn't say officer, it's more of a technician. They have very limited authority. They're not sworn. They only observe and issue educational materials. So you'll notice that we did have a huge jump in the number of weed complaints that we had based off of the efforts that that particular technician did. We continue to see increases in trash and litter complaints over the last month, and it is consistent with the same time last year. And it's usually around this time where we're running into the accumulation of trash and junk, especially as it comes to people doing a lot of extra yard work this time of year. So we may even see a little bit more of an increase into next month just because people aren't removing, or trash services may not have efficiently picked up those trash and debris and yard waste from the fall season. You'll also notice that we continue to have an increase in animal control calls for service. It really just highlights again the number of calls for service we receive that are animal related. Does anybody have any questions about the statistics?
I do. So the seasonal code enforcement officer, how long did we have them?
So initially we were hoping to have them in place by June 1st, but due to the coronavirus situation, hiring freezes because we weren't able to interview or have people in, that person started in the middle of July.
Thank you. Any other questions for Supervisor Lewis? Monica? Sorry, Monica had her hand up.
Yeah, I just have a general question about the animal, the issues with animals. Are most of those about pets, or do they have to do with wild animals? Like, if you just had to roughly break it down in general, like what percentage have to do with?
Typically, it's about 20% wildlife. The rest are usually domestic animal related calls for service. So wildlife, what we would include in there would be issues with dead animals, dead wildlife, such as squirrels, raccoons, skunks, any type of concern or complaint that we had related to wildlife. Could be birds are considered wildlife, and then coyote sightings. That is included in the animal controls. And I believe we only had 1 or 2 last month of the sighting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colleen, you had a question?
Actually, I have 4. I'd like to start with just one quick question. What code do you use for your summons and complaints on off-leash dogs?
Specifically, it kind of falls into two sections, but the ordinance for running at large would be 71A3.
And is that the one you use mostly for off-leash?
That is the one that says that it is unlawful. So we can't write for definitions. Definitions set the example. And so if you were to look at the definitions under 71A1, that specifically highlights all of the definitions that go into effect for that specific ordinance under that title.
Okay, I guess I understand that. I have a couple of other questions relating to statements you made last meeting. And if I misunderstood you, please correct me. I think in the last meeting, you said that all violations of code are criminal. Did I misunderstand that statement? And if not, what in the code says that?
Well, I think it's best for you to address that to the city attorney's office because she can interpret the ordinance more finite than I can with that.
Okay, well, then my second question is, did I misunderstand your statement that you would change the process or skip steps in the process when a property owner has been warned before on a code violation, even if the said owner complied within the time set?
I think it's really important for you to refer back to 15-3-2, the administrative abatement process. It outlines our specific process and what we can and can't do. It also has very specific information related to code officer's discretion.
Well, I understand that. To clarify, in several meetings, notably August of 2018 and July 17th of 2019, the police liaison, Commander Tim Englert, and the Deputy Chief Watson and City Attorney Brown said that the process outlined in Title 15 as the process was to be followed for Title 15 codes, Title 6 noise, and Title 7, Chapter 1, and the process specifically to be followed. I don't read in there anywhere where you change the process no matter what, how many violations were. Is that correct, or am I misunderstanding?
So I need a point of order here. So we're talking about code enforcement significant events in September. So I'm confused about a meeting back in 2018. How does that relate?
No, it's just clarification of the process. It was confirmed what was in Title 15 was the process. And I specifically wanted to know why, if there was an option in that process to skip steps. And I understand from, history, because this was confirmed, that the process had to be followed in all cases. And I just wondered if it had been changed or not, since he specifically said he could change the process depending upon the number of violations before.
Monica, you're muted.
Sorry, Sheila. I'm a little confused. I thought we were talking about questions about the report that Officer Lewis has presented. And what you're bringing up, to be quite honest, I would like to be able to look at what you're talking about and know how it relates to what we're talking about. And so I just wanted to interject that perhaps this is new business that can be brought up another time. I'm having a hard time relating to how this relates to what we're talking about.
Can I explain that, please? These were brought up, these questions were brought up before under under code enforcement significant events because it has to do with the process. And I just wanted to know if that was an accurate understanding, that he can change the process because it has to do with his enforcement activities.
Well, I would like to move that we reconsider this question on another meeting because it is off topic and the people that are sitting on this committee have no idea what you're talking about and don't have a chance to understand what you're referring to. I understand that I think I'm hearing that you're questioning the process, but we don't know what process you're referring to. And
The Title
why.
15 process.
Okay, so does anyone else have any idea on how this fits in what we're talking about?
I'm just trying to clarify a statement he made in the last meeting. If we don't want to go there, I'll just pose my second question, which has to do with enforcement and the statistics.
Okay.
Okay, my final question is Title 6-5-1 defines code enforcement ability to issue summons and complaints on certain titles. It limits Title 7 to Chapter 1. I want to know, are any of the summons and complaints that have been issued, did they specify Title 7, Chapter 6, like interference with officers in the performance of their duties or devices to trap feral cats?
I don't have any information to provide to you at this time, Colleen, about that.
Colleen, is this appropriate for a records request? Because
No.
the rest of us are not following along with you here.
Okay, I was just trying to verify some things. I'll just drop that and ask. Oh, what was the question? Never mind, I'll drop it.
Okay.
I just wanted to know if they had done any enforcement on Title 7, Chapter 6.
Which
states interference with an officer in the performance of his duties. But I can bring it up another time. I just thought, based upon statements that have been made in the previous meeting under this topic, I just want a clarification of some of it. It's not important.
Okay, well, might I suggest that if there's a specific, question that you have regarding code enforcement statistics, as you know, our report here doesn't give us the details, and the system that they have, I don't know if they can go back that far, but I'm guessing this would require some research, and Officer Lewis doesn't have that on the top of his head.
I just remembered the question. I had in my notes that he said that the new software would be live at the end of October. It's pretty close to the end of October. So I wanted to know if that's gone live and when we can expect more detailed information like what I was asking.
So the police department went live with the new software system as of yesterday. Code enforcement is currently delayed for moving into that new system until after January 1st.
Oh, so we're not going to be able to get more specific information like under animal control, how many summons and complaints were issued and on what codes?
No, the city is not providing that information in this report. The report that you're receiving is the report that the city manager has asked us to prepare, and any additional reports are not generated at this time by the city.
And we won't be able to expect to get it until January.
I don't know what that software capability would be. If you have specific questions about summons and complaints and how many were issued, you can address that to the courts.
Okay.
Thank you, Officer Lewis. Any other questions on the code enforcement statistics from September? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and move into the proclamation from October 2020 that was presented this past Monday, I believe, which I wasn't able to attend. A proclamation declaring October 2020 as Code Enforcement Officer Month for the city of Inglewood. I think that's wonderful, Dave. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So all of officers were recognized at the city council meeting
Well, this was a proclamation nationally. This is I believe the first year that the national organization has put out to municipalities to recognize October as Code Enforcement Officer Month. And I really want to make sure that if you've read through the proclamation, it's not just code enforcement officers that are being recognized here. It really recognizes all of those within the city that work within the code. And that involves zoning, it involves the building department. To some extent, it involves the fire marshal's office. So it really is recognizing the overwhelming need that municipalities have for code and those that enforce those codes.
Was there, so there was a proclamation held during city council meeting. Was there any other ceremony or anything done for the staff?
No, typically there would have been some type of a ceremony.
Yeah.
But because of our current state of affairs, there wasn't any kind of there was a recognition, and all of my team listened, and we greatly appreciated what council had to say, and we took their feedback. And there's been a lot of amazing changes that have happened within the city. And I'll be the first to say we still have opportunities and challenges to overcome. But I think overall in the last 5 years, we've made tremendous strides. And one of the biggest things that I'm excited for is we're going more mobile. We're each going to have capabilities like officers to work out in the field starting after January, where we'll be able to take on cases out in the field and document stuff instead of having to duplicate a lot of our work. So I really look forward to our process changes that are going to take place after the first of the year.
Well, I hope you will share with your staff, Dave, how much we all appreciate the energy and the efforts of the code enforcement team to help Inglewood be as wonderful as we are. So please
Thank you.
pass on
I appreciate that. We do have a quasi staff meeting. It's going to look a little different tomorrow based off of the new Tri-County health orders. But I will convey your comments to them, and thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. You guys also are part of the Code Enforcement Recognition Month. I really need to thank all of you for your contribution and volunteering to your community to exercise the voice and be a conduit for our community. It's very important to have meetings like this, and all of your feedback and input really does lend to this month as well as code enforcement, because you have a direct say directly to council from the community, what's happening in the community. And so I want to thank each of you for your feedback and the opportunities that you give code enforcement to make changes, and that you are partnering with us and working alongside us to promote healthy and safe communities. So thank you to each of you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So are there any other comments or questions for Supervisor Lewis? Monica?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that is really awesome. And I was thinking about that today after I saw it in the minutes or in the agenda. And I thought, a lot of what you guys do is pretty thankless. And I just kind of closed my eyes for a minute and thought, what would our community be like if you didn't do the work you do? That really is underappreciated in so many cases. So I just want to say thank you. And this is, and maybe we can talk about this later, but as a member of the communications team. I just think this is a great opportunity to toot code enforcement's horn a little bit and bring a little positive awareness to all the good things they do for the community.
Colleen?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I'm hoping that Chris Harguth will publish that in the next Citizen magazine.
Feel free to provide that feedback to him.
Okay. Question, Dave, when you say the new Tri-County Health Order, what impact does that have on your team?
So the way that we're doing our work here is we're very safe. We still follow all of our mask mandates when we're not in our personalized space. So who here has seen our office space? Okay. So our office space is set up where we sit farther than 6 feet apart. We do have dividers between each of us. We are able to stagger when people are working in the office and working in the field. We have individually issued vehicles that are sanitized frequently. So we're not sharing vehicles and risking our exposure. We are limiting our contact with the public right now. We have reverted back to doing a lot of stuff by mail versus going up to someone's door and posting stuff and having that engagement. If we are needing to issue summonses, we're really eliminating or minimizing our points of contact. So instead of requiring summons, we're personally serving them so they're not having to sign stuff and share pens with us. So we're really trying to take those extra steps to try and not just protect our code officers, but also to continue to promote the health of our community and the health of our animals, because it has scientifically proven that interactions with animals can transmit the coronavirus. So we're really limiting that as well.
All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on, we'll go ahead and I'm going to recognize our City Council Liaison, City Council Liaison, Mayor Rita Russell. Sorry.
That's okay. Council Russell, member at large. Just wanted to
thank you.
Clarify that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair Bowden. I do want to congratulate code enforcement. I greatly appreciate Supervisor Lewis's input, and I know that code enforcement are the frontline people, and I greatly appreciate the fact that he was very appreciative of all of you, because it really is your job as citizens to help make them better, and so I appreciate that, and thank you for that. And it actually was the last council meeting, which was not Monday night. It was the 19th of October. It was in that council meeting that proclamation was made. The other thing that was really interesting to me that night, and I actually would encourage you all to look at the 2020 citizen survey results came out that night. We discussed that in the study session prior to the meeting. And just a couple of quick things that Heather Locke reported on is that safety and economy were trending down, especially in the police department and the fire department. There were economic challenges in that. 14% of residents' outlook on their own economic stability was not great. 1 in 2 residents are facing housing cost stress. And so I just think that it would be a good thing for you all to look at, and just maybe there's something in there. I mean, there were some things about code enforcement, but I'm not sure that it involves code enforcement as far as your purview. I think it was code enforcement more maybe in the community development department. But anyway, I think those are good things for us to look at. So if you have time, you might want to look at that. I think it's probably on the city website too, but it's definitely in the packet for October 19th. Is that correct, Supervisor Lewis? And you all have the citizen survey too, correct?
We do, and it's thank you for pointing that out. It is posted on our website. I think there's a link that's been published or will be published that actually goes directly to the survey results.
Okay, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I
Thank you.
participated in that.
They mailed out 1,200 things. I think there was an opportunity to do some online respondents too, and they're selected at random. It talks in the survey, you know, how.
The protocol. I think I received an email asking me to participate, so I did it that way.
Mhm.
Great. All right, are there any other, Officer Lewis?
Again, I just wanted to point out, thanks, Councilmember Russell, for pointing that out. And I want you all to know, and this is our commitment from code enforcement, that we're very sensitive to the impacts economically that are occurring within our city. And we're really working with our residents. Our primary goal here is voluntary compliance, and we understand the struggles that are occurring within our city. And we're really trying to work with our citizens to give them extra time and to work with them. As long as people are communicating with us and they're upfront and they're honest and they're letting us know their circumstances, we are able to work with them within the purview of code to try and get them into compliance. The last thing we want to do is tie up a court system for someone who really is indigent or has some financial concerns about trash and stuff. And we really want to try and find and connect some of our communities. One thing to highlight is our Snow Buddies program. I'm so excited that that's been launched, where citizens and people who can't fend for themselves can, or are disabled, can have somebody partner in their neighborhood to shovel their walk. So thank you, Rita, for pointing that out. There are some significant disparities in this, having a moment, some significant concerns related to the economy and how that's impacting our citizens. And we talk about this frequently within the police department, especially within the code enforcement division, because that's the first thing that you have to do when you make hard decisions, is some of your services have to be cut to put food on the table. And so we're trying to connect people with food banks, with their religious organizations, with community members. If they're struggling, we're here to try and connect people. It's not just us out there enforcing the code. We're a community resource. So I want to impart that on everyone.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Supervisor Lewis.
Okay. Anything else, Councilmember Russell?
I have nothing else. Thank you.
All right. All right. So let's move forward to agenda item number 6, which is the communications subcommittee update.
Okay, I guess that's me.
That is, yes.
Okay, so I shared with you at our last meeting that I think I had already met with Chris Harguth. And so we've started putting our heads together on getting the ball rolling on this. And so today I would like to share with you, and do you have it, Julie, the PowerPoint?
I don't.
You
I
don't?
didn't receive it.
Ooh, okay.
I have a Word document, but not the.
No, I sent you an email of an updated media plan. It should be, no? Let me try to send that to you again really quickly. But generally, while I do that, I will just tell you all that our next article is, if we want it to be written by the copywriter, which is, I think, the best way to get it in its entirety, it needs to be in by November 6th. And we're going to go ahead with that original idea. Kind of getting back to basics. I conducted an interview with Officer Lewis, and he provided me with some really excellent responses that can be condensed into a really positive and informative piece to, kind of let the community know what code enforcement does, how it works generally, and how, I'm sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. Basically highlighting all the good work they do in the community and how citizens can interface with them. So I'm attaching this one more time and sending it to you right now, Julie. So let me know if you.
I have gone, I know I've gone through all my emails, like it's not there. Happened to me before. I don't.
Well, if I put it up, can I share it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you pull, you should be able, I think.
Even though I'm not the.
Do you have a, on the bottom of your screen?
It
do you
says I
have
can share a
a
screen.
share screen? There you go. You're
Okay.
good.
Let me see if I can find it. Huh. I don't know. Huh. I'm not really familiar with Zoom as I always share on Google Meet. I'm not quite sure how to do this. I'm sorry, everybody. This is bizarre.
So go ahead, Maureen.
You should be able to share it. There should be a green icon on the bottom row.
Yeah, I've clicked on that and then.
And then you should be able to go and find the document.
Okay. Okay, let me try this. Ooh. Boy, this is just taking me in all different kinds of places. I am, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, you guys.
That is so bizarre. So can you resend the document, the PowerPoint to me?
I just did. You didn't get an email from me? I'm sorry to be wasting everybody's time right now.
Okay, I found it.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay, so, all right.
And I wanted to share this. I took what Julie did last year and just updated it and added in, kind of the threads that we've been talking about in our conversation about this. And I just would appreciate your input so that it can be something that we enter in the record as our plan.
What are you all seeing?
I see it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So can you go to the next page?
Yes.
Great. And so we just kind of updated the priorities. We wanted to have our priorities be to increase voluntary compliance, which it sounds like it's already quite high, by educating residents on current city codes, informing the public about accomplishments and future initiatives of code enforcement, and to seek feedback from the community on code and code enforcement processes through public meeting surveys and social media. So, and the thing I'd like to get your feedback most on today is surveys. So you can go to the next slide, Julie. Okay, so our hope is to make a media plan that goes throughout the year and is specific to Emerald Ash Borer, kind of like alongside what code, all the other things that code enforcement does. And so we talked about this last time, but more specifically, we'd like to do monthly videos on social media the months of March through July to emphasize the importance of being aware of the emerald ash borer and its eminent entry to our city, and give people opportunities to seek resources to treat their trees or cut them down. Linking through the banner ads, and making it the focus of the spring quarterly article. I can't remember her name at the city, but she alerted me to the fact that we already have a dedicated webpage to the emerald ash borer. So I was just looking at that right before I got on this meeting, and it looks like it's something that we can update and put some bells and whistles on. So that was a great thing to find out. And maybe we can make it more accessible, easier to find. And then Rita had suggested, which I think is a great idea, reaching out to the Englewood Herald to put that article, perhaps the one that Julie wrote, in print for people who are not using the internet to get their information. I thought that was a fantastic idea. I'm still trying to figure out how we can put some type of flyer or mailer, maybe in something that's already going out. So if anybody has suggestions on when that would be something good to do, and in what publication. And what I'd really like your feedback on today is producing some good questions for online surveys. And I have another slide, I think, that discusses what we'd like to do as far as that. There it is. Okay, so the communications team at the city was really excited that we might be able to generate some surveys. They're looking for topics. So I would just appreciate all of your help with coming up with some questions that would help us kind of get the pulse on what people know about emerald ash borer, and how they would respond given a certain situation or incentive to treat their trees. And then I thought animal licensing, welfare, this has come up in several meetings that I've been to with Denver Off Leash and the Parks and Rec Commission, and here in code enforcement. Animal licensing has come up over and over, and leash laws, etc. So I thought maybe putting out a survey on those topics we could do, and then kind of like we did within our own committee, getting a survey on code enforcement, seeing what, getting people's views and input on what they think the priorities should be. So I don't know if you think those are good topics, but that's what we came up with. And if we could agree to do one or two or all three of those, and just put our heads together on making it something that's actually useful, that we can get that information back in and put it to good use. And
I have a question.
Yeah.
Monica, so is the communications team willing to help us with the survey, or do they have a survey tool
No.
that we can use?
Yeah, they have a service, an online platform.
And Monkey Survey Monkey?
Yeah, that's what's been really great about this whole process, is every time I give them an idea, they're like, we have an app for that. They have systems in place for getting this new website. This is something that I just really want us to take advantage of. All they have to offer. It's there, and all of these things will give us more ways to reach out to the community, so we're not just depending on those quarterly articles. And they're going to do all the heavy lifting. We just have to provide the ideas, the content. Let's put some thoughtful questions in, and they'll get it out there for us. I think that's great, because personally, as someone with a full-time job, I don't have the time do all that stuff. So I'm really appreciative that
Now,
they
there's
are.
a science to surveys, so it's good to have someone that has that expertise.
Exactly. We don't want to burn people out with too many questions or ask questions that are hard for people to understand who aren't immersed in this the way that we are. So yeah, so I just think it can be a really positive and useful tool for all of us.
Colleen had her hand up for you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate now because we're talking about surveys, but I was alerted by Monica that the city is doing a monthly newsletter, but I'm assuming it's online. So it would only go to people that were signed up with the city with their email address and Facebook. I'm sure that it's going to be on Facebook too, the city's site for Facebook. But I didn't see that on here as one of the sources for getting the word out on EAB. But one other thing I wanted to have her address, Monica address with the communications team is the possibility of maybe inserting something that can be torn out and either delivered or picked up for delivery for a survey for the EIB article that never got published that Julie spent so much time on, and it was a really comprehensive one, to get that out right away. And I understand it can go in the Herald, but also maybe an insert in the January issue of the Citizen magazine that can be ripped out since they aren't going to be able to publish it in addition to whatever we're going to be doing for the August one. And for getting information on the surveys, I suspect, would it be okay with you, Monica, if we individually came up with some ideas and sent them to you on your website? I mean, on your email?
Mhm.
Would that
Yeah.
be the easiest way?
Yeah, that would be great. I just want to collect good ideas. I just think that putting our heads together will get a better product. As far as what you were saying about a newsletter, I think you're referring to those alerts, and you can sign up for alerts from different committees and things through the city of Englewood. So that's kind of what I was talking to you about. It's not a physical newsletter. That's something that people seek out. I shared that with you. Yeah.
Oh, I misunderstood you then because I thought you were all excited because Tony Arnaldi was doing a monthly newsletter.
But it's everything that Tony's putting out is online. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what I
what
thought.
I was just trying to kind of give you an idea of that there are just a lot of different ways that the city's putting out information.
Dave has had his hand up for a while. Maybe he can shed some light.
So I wanted to let everyone know there is a new communication project that I think came out a month or two ago. You may have seen it published if you're involved in social media. It is an electronic communication only, I believe, at this time, and you have to opt in. So you can go to the website. I think it's called eCommunity. That does send out a monthly informational newsletter. I think I received my first one when I was on vacation, so I just briefly looked at it. But it is opt-in, so it's not going to everybody. You do have to provide your email address so that you can receive that information. And I believe it covers all kinds of topics from events to potentially, I think they're going to start including statistics from the city in that newsletter. So they're still ironing out what it's going to look like, but it's ever evolving.
Where do you find the place to opt in? Do you know?
If it's okay with you, I don't have access to that information just because of the way my screen's shared, but I'll email that to you directly so that you can disseminate the information.
That'd be great. Thank you. I wasn't aware of that. Carson, you had your hand up for a while there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I like the idea of doing the survey, and I would just like to be able to participate in reviewing the content before it goes out, because honestly, some of the surveys I've seen come out of the city, I've been very frustrated with as someone trying to fill them out, because they don't take into account much nuance. And I think that it's worth putting the effort into, like the original trash one. I gave up on it right away because it was so biased. You know, I'm on that committee now, but I wanted to answer the questions in it, but I couldn't because there weren't reasonable answers to make. So I want to say that I would like to be involved in whatever the content is of the survey that goes out.
I totally agree, Carson. That's exactly what I'm getting at. And that's why I'd like us all to work together. I just really encourage everyone on the committee to please share your thoughts and ideas on this. And like Colleen, your idea for the magazine is good. And I will reach out to Chris Harguth and see what the possibilities are for that.
Carson?
Oh, and just one other thing, when Member Johnson said about the Inglewood website, Emerald Ash Borer, I started looking at that, and there's one link in there, emeraldashborer.info. And if you go to there, there's actually an app you can download for your phone that makes it easier to identify trees, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all from the U.S. Forest Service, right?
That one is the Colorado Department of Agriculture site.
Got it. Yep. CSU originally had a lot of information on EAB, and it appears that that information has been transferred to, I think, either the Forestry Service or their agricultural department. But that has been the most robust site out there.
Mm-hmm. I've started making a resource page to share with the communication team at the city so they can build something out. So also, if anyone comes across a good resource, please do email it to me and I will include it in that document.
Yeah, so much work has been done by, I think it's the U.S. Forestry Service, and they've got all these tools, and I just want to make sure that we don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, there's no reason for us to rebuild something that's already there. It's something that we're able to tap into and utilize. It's in the public domain. So I'll send you the link to that.
Great.
I just looked, the app was made by Colorado State University.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty
so
cool.
Something happened where they turned it over. That whole project appears to have been turned over to the Forestry Service. So.
Mm-hmm.
Monica, did you want to continue on?
Yeah, I'd like to just get through this and move on. So I think you need to go ahead. So just kind of building on what you did last year, Julie, there are listed, there's some top violations that probably should be addressed annually. And I think that code enforcement plans, like looking forward, is equally important. So we've just got a nice little list of things that would also be included in all of our communications. So, and you see animal licensing there again, and along with whatever we're doing, we want to put what's seasonal. So if we can look at the charts, I think those are next. I had a little trouble with this. Oh.
Here, I'll take that out for you.
Okay, thanks. I had a little trouble with this because I really wasn't aware of our presence on social media, sadly, during this year. Since I've been on the committee, I don't really feel like this has been, I think probably with COVID and everything else that's going on.
Well, what happened is the idea was great, but the responsibility for building the posts fell on us, the same people that were writing the articles. And at first, we were providing the content, but they weren't utilizing it in their social media because they had an editorial calendar and it just didn't mesh with what they were working on. So now that, you know, we'll be incorporated with their media calendar, you know, maybe, you know, we'll now have a presence on those social media sites. I have seen some things here and there on Nextdoor, you know, regarding snow removal that has been put out by the city in the past, but that was just coincidence. So I think now that you're collaborating with them and you're being, you know, code enforcement is being included in the editorial calendar, we'll have a greater chance for getting coverage. It was just too much for us to provide all the content for all those different outlets.
Well, and as I mentioned, it sounds like from my conversations with them that they're going to take the ball and run with it. We will just provide that basic, you know, here's the topic, here are the facts, you know, and they're going to zhuzh it up and get it out. So I am excited about that. So you can go on to the next one.
Okay.
So this is our kind of wish list. And again, this is just a working document. So if you have anything you'd like to add or take away or that you don't think is relevant, just, you know, again, reach out to me or say it now. But like I said, we're going to go ahead with that first article, like kind of starting back at the basics with code, and the seasonal reminder will be snow removal. And if we can get some additional material, as Colleen was mentioning, in about the emerald ash borer, since we did not get that last article in, I'll certainly try my best to advocate for that. But it will definitely be the spring topic. I thought for summer, going into fall, animals and possibly licensing, if that conversation continues, might be something to talk about. Maybe Officer Lewis can guide us with that. And then in the fall, just talk about, you know, in our last meeting, we talked about keeping wood beautiful, having the leaf collection, and maybe kind of tying into some other programs that might help people around preventing code violations. And then talking about other, you know, topics that come up, like parking of inoperable vehicles and things like that. So if anybody wants to weigh in that on any of those, they're not set in stone. But as you can see, I've X'd out everything on social media and the website, because my real hope is that we can just keep hammering out these kind of one hitters to all the social media components that the city has, including any surveys that we come up with. So I really think that the website and social media is how we can get so much more accomplished. So if we're consistent in our messaging.
Colleen?
Yeah, Nextdoor seems to have a bigger reach. Is the city and Tony Arnaldi still posting stuff on Nextdoor?
Yes.
So we
Yes.
might want to add that. Oh, you do have it, sorry.
Yeah. And she was in the meeting that I attended with them. So they're all like anxiously awaiting, you know, our first post, which I think should be about Code Enforcement Officer Month. I think that would be a great place to start.
Great. Colleen?
Yeah, that has already been done for us with that proclamation. We just need to make sure that gets printed somewhere.
Right.
And we be a little more specific about code, because that's really the only thing we have to do. The only thing within our purview is to communicate code and process. And
I think
look
it's
at
okay
codes.
sorry. I think it's okay for us to communicate about the existence of code enforcement. I mean, isn't that what we're trying to educate on at this point, is that Inglewood has a code and that there is an enforcement component to that? And please meet Dave Lewis, who heads
Well,
up that team.
Yeah. I think it's important that we get their mission statement out in front. And I just did a real quick draft and I put their mission statement exactly. And I wanted to start with congratulations on Code Enforcement Month, and then say the mission of our code enforcement unit. And I used exactly their words, is to enhance and preserve our neighborhoods and business districts while providing a safe, healthy, and environmentally friendly community. We strive to gain voluntary compliance through education, community involvement, and enforcement of ordinances in a fair and unbiased manner while providing superior customer service. And the process of enforcement is outlined in Title 15 and applies to Title 15 codes, Title 7, Chapter 1, which is animal control and welfare, Title 6, noise, and is intended to help property owners maintain their properties and animals and obtain voluntary compliance. Graffiti and ice and snow have their own process in the codes. And then I put down the process out of Title 15. That's 200 words. So it would go in really swiftly. And then if it's next to Code Enforcement Month, I think the two go together.
Mhm. And I believe that's what you sent me today, Colleen.
What?
You sent me that, and I believe that you sent me that
Yeah,
today.
I did.
And it does go along with some of the answers that Dave gave for the interview questions. So that'll all be kind of incorporated together with the help of the city copywriter. So that'll be really nice to see. Maureen.
Well, I hope it was useful.
Maureen?
Yeah, 2 copies of the proclamation were given to the city manager's office. So as soon as the mayor signs it, they should be available. I figured one original would go to code enforcement, because I'm the one that prints those out and makes the proclamations, and one would stay with the city clerk's office. But there will be 2 original documents.
Great.
I just wanted to let you guys know.
Okay. Monica, was there anything else that we needed to go through?
Well, I actually had a question for Maureen, but I would just like to say I've never done this type of thing before, so I know what I would like it to look like, but I appreciate everyone on the committee's input. So thank you in advance. I know some of you have been on committees for a long time and worked with the city more. And so I appreciate everybody's input. My question to Maureen is about communications, because this is something that just seems to trip me up a bit. And within a subcommittee, what I understand is that if there's 3 people, if we're all including each other on emails, that goes to open records. And so my question is, if I create a document to collect information that the people on the committee can access and add to, is that something I can do, that we can do?
Yes. And
Okay.
now if you're just going to do it via email, make sure that they don't reply to you with questions.
Okay.
It's a one-way.
It's a one-way only, otherwise you'll violate open meeting law. And if they are able to make changes to the document, that's fine. But please remember that, like, this committee is under the umbrella of the city council, any subcommittee that you guys form is also under that same umbrella and must abide by open meeting law regulations.
So so I can have a document that people can dump ideas and information onto.
You can, yes.
But when I communicate to the other people on the committee, I address them individually only,
That's correct.
and they can't ask me questions about what I've sent.
They can reply to you as an individual. You
Okay.
don't want to make it a group email
Okay,
because then you'll be violating open meeting. So
Okay.
one-on-one communication is okay. You can send out to each individual the same question in
okay,
separate emails and have them respond directly just to you, and you can incorporate that information into your document. And they can ask you directly questions, but there cannot be a group communication. You're then having a meeting that hasn't been posted and you'll be in
Okay.
violation.
thank you. I appreciate that clarification, and going forward, I'm sure I've messed up on that, but going forward, I clearly understand. I didn't realize that a subcommittee had the same.
They fall under the same regulations because this committee that is under city council, was created by city council, must abide by open meeting law, just as city council must. And any subcommittee that is created by you guys is also under those same rules and regulations. But if you guys ever have any questions, you can always email me. I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you.
You're very
I
welcome.
get it. That was very clear.
Well, my
Carson?
question is, in some cases, it makes sense to be able to have a conversation over email. Is there no way that we can do that and then have that content become part of our record so that it is public? Is there no way for us to have a conversation through email and then just make it public?
You can totally have a conversation under email, but it would be a meeting. You would have to have an agenda and post the meeting.
In advance of the
You can totally
conversation?
do that. And as usual, the 24-hour rule, which is the rule from Colorado, the state of Colorado, the agenda must be posted 24 hours in advance. But this subcommittee can actually call a meeting and have an agenda. And I would post the agenda for you, of course, because that's my job.
Colleen?
Yeah, always before, anybody can send out a blanket email to all the members and say, please respond to me only, no reply all. And that takes care of the problem. If that wasn't, and I wasn't clear in the response. So if Monica wants to send out, hey, I need some ideas on surveys, here's the topic, make your suggestions, but don't notify anybody but me.
Maureen?
That will solve the problem. And that was said by the city attorney in a meeting some time ago. It was also said by the city manager several times and council. So that's just my input from history.
Maureen?
Colleen is absolutely correct. However, if you make a mistake and don't read that portion of it and you reply all, you've just violated open meeting.
So what happens when we violate open meeting law? by
Well,
the way?
actually, it's amazing to me. Colorado really doesn't have much bite to their open meeting law, which, as I said, surprises me. Not much. I mean, you can come back to the next meeting and you can remedy the violation, okay, by saying, I didn't understand that it was a violation, blah, 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 blah. This is the reasons that this happened. And you do that in a public meeting, okay? So then it's normally remedied, you're good to go.
Got it.
My point of saying one-on-one, because that subcommittee is only 3 people. You can, as Colleen stated, it's totally legal to go ahead and send out a blanket email stating, please don't, reply all. But as I stated, if you do reply all, then you violated open meeting. So it's always best to be safe than sorry.
Colleen?
Yeah, she hit the nail on the head when she said they don't have much bite to it. There's absolutely no punishment or anything about violating an open meeting law.
regardless, I don't want to violate it, and
I
I'm
know.
happy to, I'm happy to send separate emails. I just really wanted to clarify. So like for the survey, Maureen, I can send out a solicitation individually to every member of the committee, not just the communications committee.
Yes, you can, but please put in there, don't reply all.
Well, no, I'll do it individually.
Oh, yes. Okay, great. Yes, you can.
Thank you. I feel so much better about this, and that gives me some, some empowerment to actually move on some of this stuff. So thank you all in advance for what I know will be good contributions. That's all I have. We can move on.
A question. So the material or the content is due to the city. I think you said November 6th. What do you need from the committee in order to meet that date? What do you need to do?
As far as our article goes, I don't need anything from you guys unless you have an opinion on what I've gathered so far, which is the information from Colleen and her opinion on what it should include, and my interview with Dave, who I think is the best source for information about code enforcement. So moving forward, the only thing that I would need from you guys is survey questions if in fact Chris Harguth is able to make space for that initial article and an Emerald Ash Borer article as well, or insert or survey that Colleen had mentioned. So I need to explore that with him, but I mean, I would just, solicit you all individually if that opportunity arises.
Colleen?
Yeah, we've always before not submitted any article without the committee getting to look at it. So once you've decided what you're going to do before November 6th, which isn't very long, could you please notify each one of us of what it is and what the article content is?
Yeah, maybe this will help you. November 6th is when I need to submit things to the copywriter. The final submission to the magazine is not for a few weeks after that. So we're just moving up that deadline to have it done by the city copywriter.
Can I ask you a couple questions? So since we've changed things a little bit where we're not writing, actually being the copywriters, the city is now actually doing that for us. Does that change the approval process?
What I am to understand, and I can double back to make sure this is correct, but from what I understand, we give the framework and kind of the guts of the article, and they produce it, and then we get to see it before it gets approved.
We might want to look at that because that process, because there were two steps that we took before things were sent to the city. And of course, when we sent it to the city, it was pretty much in final form. But number one, we did a check with code enforcement to make sure that what we were saying was accurate, just as it is a sign off. And then secondly, we had the committee approve the content also before it went to the city. So if you're just providing the material and then the copywriter is writing it, at what point will we get a sign off by code enforcement and a sign off by the committee?
I think
you don't have to answer it now. It's just a retort. It's a question.
Well, that's my action item. I will do that first thing in the morning.
So did I share? I think I shared with you how that worked before.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good. I was gonna say if you don't have that, I'll be happy to send that to you.
No, I have it, and that's a great point you make, and I would like to give you all a better answer. So,
Colleen?
Yeah, we had before. I thought it was settled that they liked the way our tone and the way we wrote our articles, and they wanted us to continue doing it. But now it sounds like they're going to do what they want to do. And our last article was specifically, crafted it and crafted it and crafted it until it said everything we wanted it to say in 200 words so that they didn't change anything. And it sounds now like we don't have any control over what they do or the tone or anything.
We never did. The ultimate editor was the city. So even though we submitted that content, it was still modified, but they knew it was approved and accurate. So we never really did have that control. The benefit now is that we don't have to do all that writing ourselves. They have a copywriter that will do it for us. And then that's what Monica is saying, is we've got to have an approval process now to make sure that, you know, we maintain accuracy, and then everybody has a chance to, you know, see what's being done before it's finalized.
But they did accept our last article as we wrote it. No changes at all.
That was coincidence, because that'd be the first time.
Well, it's because they didn't have to cut anything.
Yeah.
Like the parking article, they cut everything about Title 15, inoperable vehicles and such, but they left everything else pretty much the same.
Yeah.
But they did hack up the snow and ice a lot because we couldn't get it into there for 200 words. But the alley one was right on target, and so they had nothing they could change or needed to change.
Monica?
I would just say that we haven't done this yet, and I think it could be a really good system. And you know, the jury's out on this one still. So and we can always change the way we do it, but for now, I think we've got stuff to work with, and I'd at least like to try this process, because if it ends up working, I think it will be just really beneficial for all of us.
I think it's a great partnership because they're the experts at communications and they know their channels better than we do and who looks at them. We're considered the experts on code. So between the two of us, we can come up with some effective communications, even though it is different than, you know, what we've been doing in the past. I think it's a real good migration and evolution to a partnership. So. All right, well, Monica and Cara and Colleen, thank you for all the work that you've done there. And Monica, you have everything you need to move forward from us?
Yeah, now that I know how to communicate properly with everyone, yeah, thank you. And I'll just keep plugging away at it, and hopefully we can produce some good communications this upcoming year. Thank
So
you.
I just want to let you know, I've made mistakes too in terms of violating the open meetings law. So don't feel bad. No one does it intentionally. It's just someone you forget. So, but I appreciate Maureen helping us understand how we can correct that. All
I
right.
just have a quick question on the open meetings. Are we allowed to use the BCC feature on emails, or does it have to be visible to, like, who the email is going to?
Well, just no, you shouldn't use the BCC. That looks like you're trying to hide having a meeting. So I would totally advise against that.
Okay. No, that's fine, because that's a good way to get people not to reply all, but if it's looks
Oh, I
fishy
see.
otherwise,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
It kind of looks fishy. It looks like because the only time I've ever used it is because of whoever I'm sending the email to, I don't want them to know that I've added somebody else in.
No, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all from the subcommunications committee, subcommittee on communications. The next agenda item is number 7, new business. I have a motion to put a review of the handbook for boards and commissions that was sent to us earlier this week by Maureen. I would like to get feedback from committee members and send that back to Jackie on our behalf. Is there any other motions with regard to new business? Okay, so did everyone have a chance to look at the handbook for members, boards and commissions? Okay. I wanted to ask Maureen. Maureen, are you aware of any significant changes that were made, or was it?
I don't think there were any changes made. I
Yeah,
think they're asking if anybody wants changes to be made.
got it. Okay. I really didn't have any. It was helpful. Oh, I know one thing that I had a question on is in our bylaws, it says that for attendance, you could have no more than 2 unexcused absences, but none of that language is in the attendance policy in the handbook. It only just says you have to attend 75% of the meetings. Maureen?
And remember, this is kind of like an outline for you guys to fall
Got it.
under,
Okay, so
but your
we're able-
bylaws can be more restrictive.
I see, okay. All right. I don't think I had any other, that was the only thing that jumped out at me. And then the other thing was when we were talking about subcommittees, they said that subcommittees were part of the Open Meetings Act only if they had 3 members. That if you have, so basically, if you only have 2 members, you don't have to follow open meetings law.
And that's completely legal.
So if we change the number of people on the subcommittee to 2, then they would not have to worry about the open meetings law?
That's correct.
So that's something for us to consider in moving forward, that if it gets too restrictive, Monica, in terms of you being able to, work with content and negotiate with the city, and you're having we could take the number of people on the subcommittee down to 2 instead of 3. Right now we have 3. We could take it down to 2 and remove that restriction. Okay. Another question, and Maureen, I think these are mostly for you.
Okay.
And I'm on page 18 under legal counsel. And this has to do with a question that we've had before, that when we have a change to a code, what is the process for us to get that approval through city council? And on page 18, it says that no ordinance can be brought to the city council until it has been approved by the city attorney's office. And
Yeah, and that kind of goes in conflict with what the policy has been here. So, I mean, I don't have really any input. You guys can ask to have that changed if that's what you want to do. Because it might not have been brought to anybody else's attention. And also your advisory board is maybe the only one that actually does,
Right.
Code changes.
And
So you might want to add some language in there that says excluding the Code Enforcement Advisory Council Committee.
So and Colleen, you correct me if I'm wrong, because you and I think, and Rita are the only ones that have been a part of this when we've changed a code before, is we took conceptually the idea to city council, then city council approved it, and it was sent to the city attorney's office to draft it.
And
Maureen?
That was the case, and it's in our bylaws that way, specifically designed by the city attorney.
Okay, so let me hear Maureen. Maureen.
that is correct. What you've just stated is absolutely correct. And I don't think any other committee does this for the city of Inglewood.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying you might want to put a suggestion forward to
Yeah.
change that to say excluding Code Enforcement Advisory Committee.
Because that confusion came up when we were trying to revise the snow ordinance, is in terms of process, how we move forward. And I remember getting caught up in that. So So should I send our comments back to you and then you give them back to Jackie?
Yes, please.
Okay. All
And
right.
it was laid out quite plainly that your committee submits directly to city council. City council doesn't actually approve what you've done. They just direct the city attorney to come up with an ordinance.
Got it. Great. Perfect. And then on page 21, where it has boards and commissions with mandated liaisons, it's got 3 ex officio staff members appointed by the city manager and then 2 city council liaison members, which, as you know, both that's incorrect. So I'll send that to you also. And I believe those were the only things that jumped out at me, unless anybody else had something else. That Colleen?
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to review it completely, but I did remember seeing something I didn't, I thought needed to be addressed, but I wasn't aware we were going to be addressing it here. And I would like the opportunity to have it put on our agenda, the entire handbook, and submit.
Well, the expectation was that everybody would review this so that we could talk about it and give our feedback to Jackie, because they're getting ready to revise this. So if you have, Maureen?
There's a deadline and I don't believe you'll make it by your next meeting. So if you all want to send me your comments, I'm happy to forward them to Jackie.
That's
Okay,
what I would like to recommend, Colleen, is that after you review it, and if you have comments, go ahead and just forward them to Maureen.
I can't find it anymore. Can I get another copy of it?
Yes, I'll send it to you right away.
Oh, I see a kitty cat. Sonia. Sonia, you did your hair different. It's the cat. Sorry. Monica, you had one.
This is totally unrelated. You're still sharing that screen if you want
Oh, thank
to
you.
take it down.
All right, stop share. There we go. All right. So I will get that to you. The changes that I just went through, Maureen, I'll send those to you by a separate email, probably tomorrow. I'll be out through the 4th of November. I'm an election judge and I will have no time between now and the 4th. Okay. So the next, now we get to our unfinished business. So we have a half an hour left and we are so very close on completing our review of the bylaws, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up the last round that we worked with in terms of the bylaws updates and review. Let me make sure this is, yeah, it has all our comments. There we go. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So as a reminder, our enabling legislation was updated, and that caused us to go back and do a review of our bylaws. I'm going to start where we left off at our October meeting. And as you remember, at the time we had all of the board members review the bylaws and provide input. If there are no comments on here, or if there's no comments on a section, that means that nobody had any recommended changes. So I'm going to move through these because there are no comments on them. And if somebody sees something that they want to discuss or reconsider, please speak up. Excuse me, section 4, time length of meetings. It's 2 hours. Open Meetings Act, we already know about that. And our quorum is a simple majority for the transaction of business. Colleen?
We want to change that to the way the city council does it, that 5 is the quorum, because if there's only 4, there's an awful big chance that everything will be decided in a tied vote or by just a few members.
So we have 7 members.
Well, we only have 6 now, but 5, council only has 7 members and their quorum is 5 to ensure that.
I'm thinking that maybe, go ahead. Go ahead and finish your thought, Colleen. I shouldn't have interrupted you. Sorry.
I just thought that it might solve a few problems if we don't have a possibility that we could have a 2-2 vote or a 4 vote that didn't include 2 members or 3 members. It just seemed, it's not that important. I just wanted to know if anybody else thought something about that.
Any thoughts? Anyone have any? The thing that comes to my mind is because we keep losing members and we don't have a full board, if we establish a number, then we might not ever meet that number. But if we keep it as a simple majority, we have a better chance for having a meeting and being able to transact business.
Sounds fine to me.
Okay. Carson, would you weigh in on that, please?
I agree with Chair Bowden on that.
Okay, Monica?
I agree.
Sonia? And Cara. Thank you. Moving forward, draft agenda should be created and posted, and then voting really is about, you know, everyone having the same vote or one vote, and then conflict of interest and abstention. Again, this is all pretty standard terminology, and I don't think anyone had any issue. We recommended removing section 11 attendance because we addressed that earlier in the bylaws and this was a repeat. My question, so this would be changed to reserve, right? Is that how it goes, Sonia or Cara? Okay, so that would go to, and then this section 11 that says name, I think this is a leftover from another committee.
Yeah, it's a leftover from planning and zoning.
Great, so we'll just strike that altogether. Where's my, oh, this is a different, I just want to cross it out. How do I cross it out? I'll remember it. Okay, that's that section.
Through.
Yeah, well, I can't find the strike through though.
That's okay.
I'm in Google Docs, which is different than what I'm used to. So I don't know where the strike through is. I'll remember it because it's too bizarre. Then we get down into finance. And again, it's pretty straightforward. With approval, we have the power to receive and disperse funds. In the past, we have, the only time we've ever spent any money was for the block party, and the police department was generous enough to cover any expenses that we had, so we never had to worry about that. Colleen?
Yeah, where it says Article 1, Section 4, subsection 3, that has to be struck because of changes. And it should be according to duties of Article 1 and responsibilities, Section 3.
Okay,
Because we made changes to that section.
can you read that again, please?
Well, we have to change the third sentence where it says Article 1, Section 4, subsection 3, because that's been changed.
Okay.
And it's under duties, Article 1, duties and responsibilities, Article 1, Section 3. So it has to be consistent with the duties and responsibilities, Article 1, Section 3.
Can you see what I'm writing here? And responsibilities, whatever.
In Article 1, Section 3.
Okay, duties, okay, is that right? Is that what you're recommending?
I can't read it. My eyes are too bad. Well, take out section 4, change 4 to 3 and strike subsection 3,
Got it.
but strike subsection 3.
All right, thank
And-
you for catching that.
And the second, that sentence that follows, within the same limitation, the committee will be empowered to contract with any private or public agency to the extent, I don't think that that's appropriate for our committee. I think that needs to be struck. And we've already got city council approval. So I think in the first sentence, we need to strike city council approval. We don't have to go back to them for every time we do this, because they've already agreed in our enabling legislation that we have the power.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're recommending that we strike the rest of this
Oh,
paragraph.
no, just the next sentence. Within the same limitation, the committee will be empowered to contract with any private or public agency to the extent required for its proper operation.
Okay, so that's deleted.
That has nothing to do with us.
Okay,
And then on the first sentence, the committee, we need to strike with council approval, with city council approval, because we already have the approval in our enabling legislation.
got it. Oh, jeez.
And that's all I've got.
Okay, so I can't find the strike button, everybody. So what I've highlighted is what is being recommended that we strike. I'm good with those edits. Can I have everybody else weigh in? Carson, please?
That makes sense to me.
Don't delete Article 1, Section 3, though. Unhighlight that.
Oh, yeah.
Because
yeah,
you
that
worry
was
that to
for
correct
me
that.
to remember that, yeah, got it. Okay.
And you might double check me on that, that's what the change was.
Okay, I'm gonna keep it. I'll remember this. Okay. All right, Sonia? You good with that? All right, Monica? And Cara. Great, thank you all very much. The next one was an article on duties, and we recommended that we delete that because, again, that's a repeat of what we've already said earlier in the bylaws. We did change the record of all committee meetings and hearings shall be kept on file in the office of the city clerk. And that's it. Those are the only other changes we had. I can't hear you, Colleen.
Oh.
There you go.
Except for the title. I mean, like you changed Article
If we
9 to Article 7.
So question, if we remove Article 6, do we reserve it or do we strike it and change the numbering?
I would just reserve it. So
Okay.
you don't have to change the numbering.
Got it. Okay. I wasn't sure the protocol for that. All right. There is one other area that we had actually kind of marked as something that we would talk about. We didn't want to go through it right now, and I'm going to propose that we strike it out of our bylaws at this point. And it is here. It's an open item. The idea here is for responding to community inquiries regarding code. And we were going to prioritize that because obviously there's a whole process to consider and other issues that need to be addressed before we go there. And I originally put it in the bylaws just because I wanted a placemaker. We have it on our list of priorities to talk about. I just don't think it belongs in the bylaws.
I agree.
You do? How about you, Carson? Monica says yes.
Yeah.
Everybody else? Sonia? Good. All right. So I'm going to take that out. I think that makes sense. And it's not going away. It's just not going to be in the bylaws. We'll address it as one of our priorities. Colleen?
Yeah, there was one other thing. It was a duplicate, and I think it was in the first sentence of this section. We had already addressed it, and I can't get to it. I think it was officers. Yeah, I think it's in that section. The general one, that part is okay, but I think it was the second one on officers. I think we've already addressed that in the code.
Oh, the
I
city
mean, in
manager
the
shall
bylaws.
appoint one member of the city staff to serve as a liaison, recording secretary, and one member of the police department to provide technical information.
No, under general, under the general one that where you just took out that one thing.
Okay.
I think it's under officers. Officers of the committee shall be elected for 1-year term, no officer. I think that's in the regular bylaws already.
It is.
So I think you should strike that so it's not a duplication.
I'm okay with it being duplicated here. Because it's the same. I think we've talked about this before where
Okay, if you want to leave it, I just thought you wanted to get rid of some
Well,
duplications that aren't exact.
well, the duplication was within this same document. You know, we addressed it twice. This duplication is restating what's in the handbook, and I think it's a good idea to keep it here.
Okay. Just a thought. I don't care. It's fine with me.
Does anybody recall, I just saw an open item here that the city manager, did we leave this as an open item? The city manager appoints one member of city staff to serve as a staff liaison and the other from the police department to provide technical information. And at the manager's discretion, a single individual may provide both. Do you guys recall why we kept that open? I think it's fine.
I think I had made a question, but I got overruled. So
okay, so we
might
take
as well
it out.
leave it and take the open item out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So at this point, Maureen, my understanding is that I sign this. I mean, I will obviously need to to take all the edits out and give everybody one last chance to review it. But do I sign this?
You will sign this as chairperson. I'm not sure if city council needs to approve bylaws or not, but I'll find out.
Okay. So for everybody, Colleen?
Yeah, it says right in our enabling legislation that we decide on our bylaws.
Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'll fix all these edits and then send them out in our minutes, and then we'll have a vote on our next at our next meeting, and I will sign this and we'll be done with it. And congratulations. Yay. Okay. Any other further conversations on the bylaws from anyone? All right. Okay. The next item on our agenda is, well, I have committee priorities and community inquiries, and we just talked about that. It's already on our list. It's already been prioritized. I don't think we need to go through that unless we want to reconsider the prioritization. I pulled the document from earlier this year when we were talking about our priorities, and let me pull this back up and I'll share the screen. So here were the priorities that we had talked about in February. One was the bylaws, we just finished those, and the next one was animal definition. Then we talk about then the work that we were doing on the trees, and then it would be the committee guidelines for communication within the community. Are you all still good with those priorities? Because the next thing that we'll be talking about is animal definition. Right? Okay, I will, unless someone raises their hand, I'm going to assume we're all still good, we're all still good with that. So animal definition in the, actually, I can just pull it up. I pulled all the animal, there we go. So this was something that Dave had mentioned earlier in the year, the challenge with the way that we've defined animals and their ability to work with animals other than dogs and cats. So currently Title 7, Chapter 1, Animals and Fowl primarily speaks to dogs and cats, but does not address any other animals. And I think Dave's request is that we expand that definition so that they can work with animals other than dogs and cats. Dave, did I accurately represent that need?
That is correct. And we're specifically looking at when we can impound an animal under certain ordinances, specifically the cruelty and neglect. The way that it reads for the impound is it says dogs or cats. It doesn't say, basically, the reason I'm asking is we've had to alter our policy in the way that we approach animals outside of domestic dogs and cats. We have had incidences revolving around chickens, pigs, goats, and reptiles, where one circumstance is we impounded a pig. That pig is not defined under how we can impound for cruelty and neglect, and we had to give that pig back. Even though it was an unsafe situation, the pig was neglected and not taken care of. And so the reason I brought this forward was as a direct result of that pig, we have not impounded any other animals under this particular ordinance outside of dogs and cats.
What, do you have a phrase that you all would use for an animal?
So I wasn't prepared to
large?
talk about this tonight. At large, we can impound any animal at large. That's written in there. It's specifically the impoundment related to animal cruelty, where we've had to leave in place animals that are not defined under the impoundment of animal cruelty.
I see it as, do you hear me?
Yes.
7-1A-9.
Yes,
Okay. Cruelty to or neglect of dogs and cats.
correct. So it does not list any other animals in there. Therefore, we cannot impound an animal that is not a dog or a cat under this ordinance. And this stemmed from a pig. Again, like, we impounded the pig, cruelty and neglect. We felt that the animal could not be there. The home had methamphetamines in it. And this is a past case that has since been resolved. The house was condemned. The pig wasn't taken care of. It was had skin diseases. Its hooves were not being properly trimmed. Its teeth had issues. And this animal, the court during the impound hearing returned the animal back to the owner, who ended up putting it at a rescue. So we found a home for it long term, but in the meantime, the animal was returned back to the owner, because under this statute we can't impound anything other than dogs and cats.
Carson?
Just thinking about possible language. I mean, would it work to make it cruelty to or neglect of any legal pet or something like that?
So I would caution this board specifically about any specific language, and more present it to council so that the city attorney, because they're going to probably have to change something in the definition, and might have to look at the whole concept of how this works, and present it to council as this is where we're seeing some frustrations. This is what we've been asked to do. It doesn't serve the best interest of animals in the long run. And again, it's completely a procedural thing.
So, Colleen?
Yeah, part of the problem occurred when they decided to divide the code between dogs and cats and other animals. And built into the definition was animals are excluding dogs and cats. So they did two different codes, and there's a lot of disparity between the two. We can do one of two things. We can either focus on this one code, this one section, and just ask City Council to make a change, allowing them to impound animals for neglect, or we can ask them to change the definition of animals, take out excluding dogs and cats, and put the two together again. The simplest way would be to ask them to add the language that's in the code for dogs and cats, that in the case of neglect or alleged neglect, they can impound the animal. That's the simplest way, but it would be better to completely recombine the two issues and change the definition of animals. Take out excluding dogs and cats, because animals are birds, they're reptiles, they're pigs, they're everything.
Monica?
I wonder if Carson was going to say this, but Officer Lewis has said that this is something that's fairly simple that will help him do this job for the city. And I think Colleen just said it herself. If we just propose that this cruelty piece needs to be changed to reflect all animals, they can take it from there. That's why we have the city attorney that looks at all those things. So I think that might just start that process. So I mean, at least it's a jumping off point.
Colleen?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Carson in a second, but we don't go to the city attorney. We have to go to council with the change.
Right. And then, Carson?
I mean, my original thought was exactly what Member Johnson just said, but the more I look at it, like, I mean, I completely get Member Dickerson's point, because I mean, if you look at this, you can see all sorts of exceptions that kind of don't make sense. Like under definitions, you know, dangerous animals limited to dog or cat, whereas, you know, you could have a dangerous pig maybe.
You can actually.
Right? I mean, what's a boar? And then like removal of excrement, that's specifically dog or cat right now. So, I mean, it does, and rabies. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that are currently specifically written out, dog or cat, that if there are, you know, I don't know what the list of legal mammals people can keep are. And even if that might be too limiting, because if they came across a snake that was not being taken care of, you'd want them to be able to take that away as well, impound, you know, whatever animals not being cared for. So, I mean, I would say there's two sides of it. There's, yes, this whole thing ought to probably be revamped, since there's several types of animals that people might have that these rules should apply to. But then, you know, on the other side, there's the only thing that Supervisor Lewis has brought up that's been an issue is specifically the cruelty. And so we could, you know, start there. And maybe what we do, I mean, since all we're really doing is making a recommendation to City Council, maybe we should just write a letter that explains all this. You know, overall, we we see that this whole thing should be revamped to cover the multitude of types of animals that many of these rules could apply to. But if that's too much to take on right now, we know that there's, a low-hanging fruit immediate need where that the code enforcement officers have run into regarding cruelty, and that may be a faster fix for even city council to address than to revamp the whole thing. And then we could make that as a single letter recommendation of, that whole concept and let them kind of pick it apart.
Colleen?
I would agree with that we just address it to city council through our liaison with a simple letter. We see a problem with dividing it with definitions and dividing it between dogs and cats and animals. But the immediate problem that code enforcement has addressed to us is that they cannot impound any animal other than dogs or cats, the way the code is written. So we suggest that we put in the language under the cruelty section that they can impound for cruelty. Take the language out, that it's duplicated in under dogs and cats, and put that language in under animals, and they can make that decision. I mean, they put in a code without not coming to us, not looking at it, whether it was duplicating something else or not. They did it in a matter of minutes, basically. So if we just present that through our liaison, just the simple letter he's talking about, and we can come up with the wording, we can just copy it from the dogs and cats cruelty section and put it in here and cite the codes and say, we think that this will solve the immediate problem that code enforcement is addressing, and that at some point we would recommend other changes, but this is the immediate problem that we think should be addressed immediately. And I think that could go through very fast, but it has to go through council.
Carson?
Just a couple questions for Supervisor Lewis. Are there any other of these that have ever come up? Dangerous, excrement, anything else that has ever been an issue?
No, so we've applied different codes for different reasons. And if we don't have a way of applying a certain code, we have a witness that wants to come forward, we can apply the nuisance code to quite a few circumstances. This is the only code related to animals recently that has really tied our hands and really is not serving the best interest of all animals. And again, this was written when most people were only involved with fish, a few little reptiles, and dogs and cats in the pet industry. As you all know, that has expanded and changed, and what people believe or perceive to be a pet has dramatically changed from different exotics to different kinds of mammals. So we are not serving the best interests of our community and not serving the best interest of our animals that are here.
And then a second question for you. Do you know if city council has ever had this brought to their attention? Like, do you report up through police or city manager? Like, has this been discussed at all?
So this was discussed with the city attorney's office when this occurred with the pig. And so it was asked that we bring this forward through the proper channels and alert you all, the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, because you are really the best voice to express your concerns and get community to follow in, basically have a buy-in to this type of a change. And I don't think any of you disagree that the city should have the capabilities of impounding animals that are being cruelly treated or neglected. And I think an overwhelming majority of, you've seen the passion of our community and constituents are very pet friendly, and they want to make sure that our pets are treated properly.
Cara, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I agree with Colleen in that, whatever the fastest resolution for this immediate issue, you know, I vote to take that path. The story about the pig is just very disturbing, and I'm sure there are many others that are quite similar to that. And it's just, that's bothersome. So as fast, you know, as soon as we could address this to city council is sort of my preferred path.
Sonia?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Sonia. Oh. Sonia, you're on mute. Sonia, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
You.
There you are.
There, thank you. Can we just change the wording to all domesticated animals?
I think the proposal on the floor is that we raise the issue that it needs to be expanded beyond dogs and cats and leave it up to the
Yes.
city attorney to decide how to phrase it, because there's all kinds of things that need to be considered that we're probably not aware of.
That's true, because we are only zoned for so many different types of animals. But I agree that we should just send the letter off to city council and it should get changed immediately. But probably the wording just to domesticated animals that are allowed in our code would probably suffice.
Dave, you had your hand up?
You guys all have a great resource here with your council liaison. Maybe Councilmember Russell might want to weigh in as to how she'd like to have this maybe brought to her or brought forward to council.
Okay.
Thank you. I was taking some notes, but I think probably you all should draft something and then vote on it. I mean, draft something that you want to bring forward to council.
Colleen?
Yeah, it's after 8 right now, but I would volunteer to write this up because I've been dealing with this for the 3 years I've been on council.
I will take you up on your offer, Colleen. And why don't we plan on having that draft for our next meeting? And when you spoke earlier, you wrote what you would recommend be put in that letter, and it was very well, you elocuted that extremely well. So if you want to listen to the tape, you won't have to rewrite it.
I will have to, but
Okay.
I would say that perhaps I could speed up the process by putting that together, sending it to you or sending it out to all the members and have them say what, they think should happen about, or, agree or not agree with the way I phrased it. And they can one at a time tell me whether or not they like it. So I would hope that we could get something going without waiting for another meeting, but if we can't, I still would want to send it out at least through you or to the, so people can look at it and give input.
So can I make a suggestion? I think that if Member Dickerson wrote something, I think that I know some committees do email votes on an issue to pass it. So I don't know. I think it does need to go to Chair Bowden, and then Maureen probably has more
Maureen,
information.
you had your hand up.
Yeah, if you vote via email, then you're voting, you're having a meeting.
Okay.
So you have to have an agenda in order to have a meeting. But remember, you can call a meeting in 24 hours. So if Member Dickerson completes the letter to council, 24 hours later, you can have a meeting, and it can be a Zoom meeting just like this, and you can all vote on it.
So it's been my experience, it usually takes us a couple of iterations. What if we plan on, Colleen, you draft it and then we send it out to the committee members and seek input, back from committee members, and at our next meeting, we vote and move it forward.
Well, we could do that, but I think it would be a good idea to do a very quick special meeting so that we don't have to deal with it again. And we can get it, because we are supposed to have put stuff before council in October, and we don't have anything prepared, and this would be at least something. So I'll go ahead and prepare it. I'll send it to you, and you can decide if we want to have a quick special meeting.
Well, let's ask everybody if they would like to do that. I am fine if that's what the committee wants to do. Carson, can you weigh in on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest, why don't we try this as a announced meeting where we are just communicating through email, because then we don't even have to set a specific time necessarily. Is that true? We could just announce that we're going to do a meeting to discuss through email with an agenda. No, we can't do that. Okay.
No, because we'd have to post this onto the city website.
All right.
You can't, you have to follow the protocols.
Well, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, but it's still very quick, actually. It amazes me, actually. 24-hour notice is very quick.
So yeah, I'm fine with that, Chair Bowden.
Okay, Monica? Is that a wink or maybe not?
I just want to be clear that we would all debate what that document looked like in the meeting, or are you saying, Chair Bowden, you would email the document to us, kind of like with the bylaws, we looked at it, put our own input, and then you collected all of that, and then we have the meeting.
And then that meeting would be to have a vote to move it forward to city council.
Yeah,
That's
like
correct.
this is what you've all said. Now we're having a meeting. Now we can decide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down. I like that.
Yeah, and both ways are fine.
Okay. Cara, would you be open to having an emergency 24-hour advance notice meeting so we can get this forward to city
Yeah,
council?
I'm absolutely in favor of that, and especially with the cold temperatures that we've been having, and I worry about the animals, so I say let's get it done as fast as possible.
Sonia, you cool with
Let's
that?
get it done.
All righty. All right. So, Colleen, I'll be available after the 4th, and then I'll be happy to send that out to the committee for feedback. And then based on that, we'll set up a short notice meeting and have a vote so that we can move it forward. And we're 10 minutes past. I'd like to set our next meeting for November and then call this meeting adjourned. So the next meeting would be November 18th, Wednesday. That's well a week before Thanksgiving. I don't even know if we get to have a Thanksgiving like we have in the past. Is that okay with everyone? All right. The November 19th. All right, everyone have a good night and thank you so
18th,
much.
right?
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Bye.